You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Well, it's October. We got October baseball, and we got all kinds of fun October baseball-related things to be thinking about, worrying about, and talking about, and all that kind of stuff. And for the minor leagues, all those guys get to do the same thing. They get to watch October baseball, too.
Yeah, I like how you put that we all have to worry about postseason baseball. It's like one of the most exciting things ever, and it's also the most, like, I don't know, sitting on a razor's edge.
Yeah, I do another podcast, as some may be aware, and talked with Arizona Diamondbacks pre- and post-game host Mike Farron the other day, and he said it's a combination excitement, anxiety, and he coined the phrase exciety, which I think is very accurate.
That's very good. Especially
excitement,
now.
Maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. Especially now when we're recording this, you know, we record these on Wednesdays, so the NL wildcard game between the D-backs and the Rockies hasn't happened yet, so we still have that to look forward to.
2.5 hours away.
Yeah, or in some people's case, worry about, I guess.
To be terrified of.
Yeah, or like last night's game between the Yankees and the Twins, which we do know what happened. The Yankees won. You know, just the idea that so much is packed into every pitch in these one-game scenarios. Which we can always have that discussion another time. We don't have to do it now, but that's what I kind of like about the wild card games. You know, if you didn't win your division, you shouldn't necessarily be put on these equal levels. And what we get instead is a play-in game that is some of the most exciting baseball, I think, of the year.
Yeah.
In these two games, even when it's, you know, even the later innings last night, you know, they were blowout. It was a little bit of a blowout by that point, and you know, when you're going to the back end of the Yankees bullpen, you feel like you have it sewed up, but you don't know. You just don't know, and I love that part of the game.
Oh, man, it is I'll say this. It's much less stressful when you feel completely neutral in those games. But if you were a Yankees fan last night in the top of the first, that oh, my God. Like, what on earth happened? And then the bottom of the first, you're on top of the world, and then everything's great. Yeah. It's like it's game 7 in one day. Yeah, right.
Right.
Oh, man. Not easy.
Gross.
Not easy. So, hey, with that, welcome into the latest edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, episode number 130 from MiLB.com. I am Tyler Maughan. He is Sam Dykstra, both of us in postseason cities. I'm in Denver, Colorado. Sam in New York City, a team that's already moving on, the New York Yankees. And we will endeavor to bring you the latest and greatest news from minor league baseball. Season over, Arizona Fall League on deck. Coming up here in just a week, the Arizona Fall League will get rolling in full speed, and that's insane that we're already at AFL time of the year. But, you know, sometimes we see, I don't think this is going to be the case in 2017, but my fondest AFL memory maybe ever will be I flew into Phoenix last year on the night in which Kyle Schwarber made his debut coming off of the ACL injury last season. Debuted last year for the Mesa Solar Sox on the same night that the Cubs clinched the National League pennant. Got to Mesa to Sloan Park just in time to get in on his post-game media scrum. Cubs are celebrating. He's talking about maybe being there for the World Series. Then he's there for the World Series, making a big impact. I mean, it's crazy how even when the minor league season is over, so many things still go hand in hand. So don't close the book on your focus on the minor league season just yet, because the AFL is right with us here coming up in a few days.
Yeah, that might have been the craziest rehab assignment that I can remember since the time Andy Pettit rehabbed with Trenton, I think, in the Eastern League playoffs.
They had somebody else they started back-to-back big league rehabbers, I remember, in that Eastern League playoff series. And it was somebody else random. It was like Andy Pettit and like Carl Pavano or somebody weird.
That sounds about right. I can't exactly remember, but I still remember, like, it was just so crazy. All these kids, not kids, they're AA players, and a good amount of them are in their mid-20s or older, but trying to compete for a AA championship. And go against this.
By the way, here's a ringer.
This guy's won multiple World Series. Go get him, guys.
Should be fun. So it's certainly a fun time of year for the minor leagues as well as for the big leagues. And let's dive in. 3 strikes on this week's edition of the show before the show, which wherever you found us, thanks for tuning in on iTunes, the Stitcher app, Google Play. You can find us at MiLB.com/podcast. Wherever you found us, give us a rating and a review and a subscription if you would be so kind. Coming up here in just a little bit, second-ranked prospect in the Baltimore Orioles organization, Austin Hayes, will join the show. And Austin Hayes is going to be one of the guys who contends for a whole lot of postseason awards. And we've got ours coming up here in just a little while at MiLB.com. The Best in Minor League Baseball Yearly, or the MiLBY Awards, as we call them. And that is 3 strikes for this week's episode. Sam, we got a whole bunch of categories for this season. What 3 provided you the most difficult choices for who you thought the winner should be?
Yeah, so first off, I didn't know MiLBY was actually an acronym.
Yeah.
Did you say that? Like, do you know that?
I knew that.
Oh,
Minor
I
League
always
Baseball
just thought
Yearly.
it was like, I just thought it was our thing.
You thought it was like
the
Grammy, Emmy, right?
Well, right. Well,
Which,
I thought
fair.
it just tacked on a Y to be cool, but
Fair.
Minor League Baseball Yearly, I like it. So we're not gonna do this whole big rundown of every single category. I remember we did that last year. That can kind of drag. Lord knows, you go to MiLB.com/MiLBY, you will be able to find every category. You can vote yourself. This will run for, I think, 2 weeks, the voting period. So there's a staff pick. We here at the MiLB.com staff, we get to pick our winners for each category, and then we write features on them. But there's also a fan vote, and you all get to have your say on who wins MiLBYs in the following different categories: top starting pitchers, top offensive player, top relief pitcher, breakout prospect of the year, game of the year, best individual performance, best team, promotion of the year, photo of the year, and best farm system. So out of those ones, some of them are a little more clean cut than others. And if you've been listening to the podcast at all this year, you probably know which of those is which. But for me, I think the 3 toughest to pick, I'll start with best team, because there are just so many great teams, but also teams are so fluid in a way that, players obviously they're moving to different levels and all that kind of stuff. But there's so many players that get added to a roster over the year. How we kind of define a team over a full minor league season can be difficult. But particularly this year, looking at the candidates, you have your AA Trenton Thunder, New York Yankees affiliate, had the most wins among full season teams. They went 92-48. West Michigan Whitecaps, they actually had a higher winning percentage at 669. They went 91-45. They won both of the halves of their Midwest League division. They had the best Midwest League record by 13 games. That makes it especially tough. AAA Memphis Redbirds, they went 91-50, which is really good considering how much movement they had this year. They ended up winning a PCL championship. Those other 2 teams I just mentioned didn't technically win their league championships, so take that with a grain of salt if you want. The Memphis Redbirds, you might remember, I think were the first team to clinch a second half title, or a first team to clinch a division title in the second half. The PCL obviously doesn't have half titles like some of the other leagues. They ended up winning their division by 22 games, which is rather astounding. But if you're going to mention Memphis, you also have to mention Durham, who went 86-56. They won an IL title. They also beat Memphis in that AAA national championship game. They had the second best record in the IL by only half a game. Like I said, they won those, not only their league title, but also their level title. Trying to parse all these different ones can be especially difficult in a very good way. All of these teams have legitimate claims. It's whether you measure it by winning percentage or whether you measure it by overall wins or whether they're holding up a trophy at the end of the year. That makes it especially difficult. And the other 2 categories I always kind of have a difficult time picking at the end of the year are game and individual performance. Again, because there's just so much that goes into it. Games, we've got Tim Tebow homering in his first at bat. Why do we have that in game instead of individual performance? Just because that was as a moment, as an event. So many people were tuned into that one when he started the year, at Class A Columbia. What was he going to do? And the fact that he homered in his first at bat I know it sent the office wild. It certainly set the internet wild. That's something we have to remember by the end of the year. But you also, I'll bring up Trenton again. They had a playoff no-hitter led by Justice Sheffield. There was a game between Albuquerque and Fresno this year that was 15-14, in which Tyler White had 6 RBIs, Ryan McMahon had 7. Christian Walker had a cycle and a comeback that led to a AAA Reno 11-10 win. That was really nuts. AAA Sacramento had 13 runs in 1 inning. Midland, won its 4th straight Texas League title. We have their championship clinching game in there as well. One of my favorites of the year, Dalton Varsho for Hillsborough, homered not only before the eclipse in Salem Kaiser, but also after the eclipse delay, which was the first ever eclipse delay in baseball, as you'll recall. The GCL Nationals threw back-to-back no-hitters. I think you may have written that story, Tyler.
I did.
On a Sunday in a doubleheader, which is just nuts. So they're, not only did they do it back-to-back games, they did it in the same day. So trying to parse all of this, we have a pair of 21-inning games as well. How do you kind of weigh and measure this is always interesting. I had to make my picks. That was an incredibly difficult category. Individual performance, the same kind of thing. We had 3 perfect games in that one. Tyler Mahle, Dominic Mazza, and Connor Gray all threw perfect games. So how do you measure perfection? That's difficult for me. Maybe the kicker is who had more strikeouts. That could happen. Tyro Estrada, he cycled in the playoffs as well for the Trenton Thunder. That's really interesting. We have DJ Peters, who homered twice off of Madison Bumgarner during Bumgarner's rehab start for San Jose. DJ Peters was playing for Rancho Cucamonga. That's just a standout individual performance, in my head, just because we were talking about that for weeks afterwards. Not only is it a 2-homer game, it's a 2-homer game off one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League Baseball, and he's doing it at Class A Advanced, which is technically 3 rungs down the ladder, which was really crazy. Dustin Fowler, before he got moved to the A's, completed his own cycle with a walk-off home run, which is really nuts. So again, trying to get this list down to 10 was really difficult. Then trying to vote for just one is incredibly difficult. So some of these other categories, I think you're going to find it pretty easy to pick. Looking at starting pitcher, I'd point you in the direction of our interviewee last week. Offensive player, there's maybe like 3 or 4 that are really in the category there, including our interviewee this week in Austin Hayes, who led minor league baseball in total bases. But that doesn't mean every category is the easiest. And I think those 3, team, game, and individual performance, are something you're going to have to take a long, hard look at and try to figure out what exactly you prioritize as a fan voting in this contest.
I mean, I think the overarching lesson is that there's not really an easy category to vote for any of these. I do think, team is always difficult because a team has a different identity in April versus what it is in May versus what it is in June, like Sam said. I think system is also really difficult to evaluate because the question always comes down to what makes a good system. Is it you graduated these guys in the major leagues? Is it these guys developed best in the minor leagues from this low level to this upper level of the minor leagues? Is it top-end talent versus a consistent base of talent? I mean, are you looking at a system like the White Sox or the Braves, or are you looking at a system like the Brewers that has a lot of good talent, maybe doesn't have the same upper echelon guys? So that one is always really difficult to quantify as well, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes the MiLBYs entertaining and makes them one of our most read stories every year. And there's a lot of good contenders in every category this year. Also, I love voting in photo of the year, which we did not have because we don't write a story about it, so we didn't have it in our staff voting. But I love the photo of the year vote. Yeah,
the photo of the year vote, we always leave up to the fans. That and the videos. That's completely on you guys. We don't have a say in that, which I think is more fun. Yeah, to leave that stuff up to you guys. Actually, I want to touch quickly on the farm system because I'm glad you brought that up. We changed it a little bit this year in terms of what we consider a good farm system. What we used to do it as is just strictly based on team performance and which teams had the highest percentage of wins during the season across all their affiliates and who had most playoff teams, that kind of stuff. We tweaked it a little bit this year. You're definitely going to find some farm systems that had really good years on that front. But we also included some of the more prominent, prospect-laced systems as well, who didn't necessarily have great years collectively as teams. So like the Atlanta Braves are in there, despite the fact that as a system, they only had a 450 winning percentage. The Chicago White Sox are in there, again, for the same reason. They have 6 top 100 prospects right now. Collectively, they had a 442 winning percentage, but any list of best farm systems would feel somewhat incomplete without at least the Braves and the White Sox. So we switched it up a little bit this year. For those of you who've been following MiLBY's closely over the last few years, you might notice that. But I think that's for the better, and that definitely makes it a deeper category than maybe it was in years past.
So that is strike one for this week's episode. Strike two comes to us from Toolshed this week. Sam had a great column as we are now almost with a fully decided 8-team picture in the Major League postseason of how all of these teams, 10 in total, and actually some included teams on this list that were not in the final Major League Baseball playoff field, because this Toolshed column came out the final week of the regular season in the big leagues, a couple of teams that were eliminated but went down to the wire trying to make it into the playoffs. How these teams were built via their farm systems, what it meant for a lot of these organizations, draft picks, international signees, prospects acquired in trades, and how those guys factored into what has turned into playoff seasons for 10 teams across the big leagues. The Washington Nationals, the leading WAR total among players who joined the organization via the Major League Baseball first-year player draft, 23 wins above replacement. Colorado Rockies, 20.1. Those the only 2 teams in which homegrown drafted and developed players accounted for 20 or more wins above replacement. But a lot of these teams, the Milwaukee Brewers, oddly enough, who were in the race up until the final day of the season, they were the last of this group in terms of players on the roster who had joined that organization via the draft and were contributing in a big way to the WAR total among those guys. But the Brewers are an organization that brought in a ton of talent via trades that has really contributed to their success at the major league level. So Sam, kind of give us a rundown of this, because there's so many different ways to build an organization, but we very rarely now see the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox of the early 2000s of teams that are just going and throwing out 9 figures worth of money at guys in order to try to build themselves into World Series contenders.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of putting it. For those of you who want to go back and look at the story, I note it in there. All these WAR totals that we're going to be discussing here were through last Wednesday, so they're a little bit outdated. Obviously, they're Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some of these guys could tack on a little bit more. And also, this is everybody on the active roster at that point. So everybody who had been called up in September. Even if they added 0.2 WAR in September, that still gets counted because obviously that had an impact. And for some of these teams, they really needed that impact in September. Some other outlets have done similar stories. They've usually used playoff rosters. Obviously, those weren't available to me when we first ran this story. Both versions of doing it are equally good, equally interesting. But kind of what stuck out to me were maybe some of the surprises. You brought up the Brewers. That was certainly a surprise, just because we think of their developmental system right now as being one of the best in baseball. But the fact that they have had, like you said, I think it was only 4.2 WAR at that point was generated by draft picks, of which there are only 5. There were only 5 draft picks on the Milwaukee Brewers active roster last week. That was surprising. But at the top of that table were the Washington Nationals, who have 8 drafted players on the active roster at the end of the season, who had generated 23 WAR, which on average is like 3 WAR, which 3 WAR is a good player. That's a good, solid starter. Obviously they had been helped by the fact that they had Steven Strasburg, Bryce Harper, and Anthony Rendon, who were all top 6 picks in 2009, 2010, 2011. We were always wondering, would this stretch work out for the Nats? Obviously, you got them Strasburg, who was one of the most impressive college pitchers in recent memory. Got them Bryce Harper, who's probably the most impressive high school position player in recent memory. And then Rendon was well thought of when he was coming out of the draft out of college. All 3 hit extremely well this year. By hit, I mean came good extremely well this year. Strasburg was a 5-win player. Harper, even when he got injured, was a 5-win player. Rendon was probably their MVP as of last Wednesday. He had a 6.7 WAR. He'll be in that kind of discussion. Probably going to be crowded out by the likes of Giancarlo Stanton, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Joey Votto, all that kind of stuff. But he definitely was playing to the caliber of an all-star level. All three of those guys, you total them up, all three came through the draft. They're all Washington Nationals products, and that certainly helped them this year. That cornerstone, those guys are forming the cornerstone of that system, and that's that just underlies how important it is to draft well. But not only that, take a step down from them is the Colorado Rockies, and Tyler, I want you to touch on this a little bit more. But the Rockies had 12 players on their active roster that were draft picks, that were original Colorado draft picks, and that allowed them to rank second in this list at 20.1 WAR. The Rockies need to draft pitching. They're not going to bring guys in through free agency and say, hey, want to come here for 4 years and watch your ERA go extremely north and try to make yourself a value here. That's going to be a very difficult sell. Obviously, they can do it, but it can be tough. So they need to draft pitching. That's how you end up with John Gray, being their best pitcher. You look down the line. I think Kyle Freeland, all those guys are very impressive drafted pitchers for Colorado. And from your view, Tyler, does it feel like this is just kind of like a depth thing that they just drafted well, or have they even drafted well at the top?
No, I think the biggest difference is they haven't missed on those top picks. The Rockies for a long time were an organization that bet high on their first and second round draft picks and whiffed pretty impressively on a lot of them. Guys like Casey Weathers and Ian Stewart and Christian Friedrich come to mind, just guys who were not high-end major league talent. In some cases didn't make the big leagues, in other cases barely cracked the big leagues. But what they've been able to do under Jeff Bridich and Zach Wilson in recent years, Bridich, the former farm director, is now the general manager, Zach Wilson, the current farm director, Chris Forbes, the manager of player development. They have been able to get big high-end talent early on, John Gray, Brendan Rodgers, Riley Pint, to name a few over the last few years. And with the talent that they've had already in the system, they've brought those guys along and graduated them and made them into effective major leaguers. That didn't happen for a long time. But Tyler Anderson and Trevor Story were a couple of first-round picks that made it to the big leagues and have had tremendous impacts. And the Rockies, for so long, just could not count on the guys that they got in the highest selections of the draft ending up being major league role players. But on top of that, I think the depth thing definitely comes into play because you get contributions from guys that you've acquired, in the later rounds of the draft or even in trade acquisitions. People for a long time thought German Marquez was really just a throw-in in the deal that brought Jake McGee to Colorado and sent Corey Dickerson to Tampa Bay. German Marquez came up in late April, did not miss a turn through the rotation the entire year. He's been a solidifying force in the starting rotation for them. So it's been a very well-rounded approach to development in addition to drafting strong. But like you said, they need to do that. And there are other teams in this conversation that likewise need to do that. The Minnesota Twins are one of those teams. The Arizona Diamondbacks are one of those teams. The Brewers are one of those teams. The Rockies can't afford, I saw it put this way by Paul Swidan at Fangraphs today, the Rockies cannot afford to spend their way out of trouble. And you've got that luxury if you're the Nationals, if you're the Yankees, if you're the Red Sox, if you're the Dodgers. You don't have that if you're one of these smaller market teams. So drafting and development is crucial, and when you whiff on it, it looms so much larger because you can't supplement an already shaky roster with money. You have to have your talent coming in its largest surge from that drafting and developing core. And the Rockies have been able to do that. The D-backs have been able to do that. The Twins, obviously, the Astros, we talked for so long about how stacked that system was. And the team who's maybe done it better than all those teams over the last several years, the Chicago Cubs, with the talent that they've graduated. So it is fun to see baseball in this light, because 10, 15 years ago, it was frustrating if you were a fan of a mid to small market team and you knew your best guys were eventually just going to be scooped up by the Red Sox or the Yankees for $80+ million, whatever it was. Nowadays, even those organizations, you look at what the Yankees have built, what the Red Sox have built, they've built around really good homegrown talent. And I think that's fun because you watch organizations implement different philosophies, try to get their talent to the major leagues in different ways. And that's cool. It's not just here's a blank check, let's go buy the best team we can. I think it's a lot more fun watching the Major League Baseball of 2017 versus of 2002.
Yeah, for sure. And just the outlets that we have, us included, all the other ones out there, to see these guys go from, draft picks to fully form, major league contributors is a lot more fun than maybe it was when you were following sporting news box scores back in the day. I always think back to that line in Bull Durham, where nobody knew that he had set the minor league record for home runs.
Right.
Like, imagine that happening now. Like, if we all just woke up one day, it was like, oh,
wait a minute,
I just got a call that Mike Hessman
what? Mike
had
Hessman?
broken the record. Yeah. It's such a different world now than it used to be. One thing to just quickly touch on, and if we're talking about player development, that stood out to me in this story as well. You'll note that the war for international signees was not necessarily as high as these other two categories. The Yankees were the only one to get double-digit WAR out of amateur international signees. But what I thought was really interesting was the fact that you only need a couple of those guys to hit, to become, like I said, fully fledged contributors, for that market to really work. The Yankees are top there, but they only have 4 international players that they originally signed on their active roster last week. 2 of them are dominating in terms of the WAR category, in Luis Severino and Gary Sanchez. I think they had something like 10.6 WAR collectively out of those 4 prospects, but 10.2 of that came between Severino and Sanchez themselves. Number 2 was the Indians at 8.3, a lot of that coming from Jose Ramirez, and the Astros at number 3 with 7.8, the vast majority of that coming from Jose Altuve. So when we look at this market, it's not necessarily, okay, what have they gotten in terms of depth from this signing period? Obviously, depth is always good. But, when teams are looking to sign guys in the international market, they only need a couple of them to become fully fledged superstars for the entire signing period to become a success, or the entire 5-year period of signing periods to become a success. So that really stood out to me in terms of how these teams are constructed. But, I'll have to look at this going into next year to see if that narrative changes at all, or how teams kind of deal with their homegrown talent. What are the trends with this? We'll have to keep an eye on this going forward.
Strike 3 this week, Sam. We received some bombshell news on Monday with the development that Atlanta Braves general manager John Coppolella would resign from his post, which he did, step down from that role with the Braves. So did his special assistant, Gordon Blakely, under investigation about the practices on the international market that the Atlanta Braves were employing. There is a lot of similarity in this situation between this one and what the Boston Red Sox were hammered for with penalties a couple of years ago. And to try to break this down in its most simplistic terms, it all obviously comes down to money. That's the answer to 99 out of 100 questions in anything in the world. But with the way international money is now restricted, there is some discussion, there is some rumor that the Braves were bundling packages of signing bonuses to certain players and guys who went through the same trainer, or Buscón, as they're known in the Dominican Republic and much of the Latin American baseball community. They would sign multiple players from the same trainer, and to overpay a more wanted prospect, they would give a lesser prospect more money, funnel that money through that player and that trainer, and get it to the better prospect to overspend on a bonus outside of the restricted cap on that player. Hopefully that makes sense the way I just explained that. But the Braves right now are being investigated for that, among other things. John Coppolella has stepped down. Gordon Blakely has resigned as well. But this could be extremely heavy hitting in that system. The Braves system, we just talked about it a minute ago, one of the best already in minor league baseball, but there are guys who are tied up in this organization, in this investigation now, who may well find themselves not members of the Atlanta Braves organization anymore. Kevin Maitan is the one who has surfaced. That name has come up a lot. He is the 5th-ranked prospect in the organization and was signed in July of 2016. The Braves paid $4.25 million to sign him, and that was the official number. But if it's discovered that this stuff has been going on, there looms the potential that Kevin Maitan will be granted free agency as punishment for the practices in that international department by the Braves. But there's a ton going on. And the reason why this stems from this investigation, why this seems to have so much more of an impact, is it all seems to have come from internally. And the fantastic Jeff Passan at Yahoo Sports had a really, really interesting column on this on Monday. And the money quote came at the end of that story. And apparently, the infighting and the self-consumption inside the Braves front office has been going on for a while. And it came to a point where some of these things may have been run up the chain to Major League Baseball at Park Avenue from inside the organization. But this was the money quote. Quote, "This place is totally effed up." And the person did not say effed. "I just hope when it blows up, it doesn't take all of us down." And Jeff Passan attributed that quote to one high-ranking Braves employee. So there's a lot going on right now in Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned this too. There's also rumors that maybe they had approached a player or come to an agreement with a player when he was 14.
Right.
Which obviously international players are not allowed to sign until they're 16.
And even at 15, it's sort of an unspoken thing. It's against the rules. It is an illicit activity. But at 15, Major League organizations a lot of times will have handshake agreements with players, that type of stuff. Major League Baseball has really tried to crack down on that because there's a lot of predatory stuff that goes on with young players and the trainers who are trying to lock them into deals so the trainers can get money. There's a lot of kind of shady stuff that goes on. But 14, I mean, that's where you're already pushing the limits and you're already going against the rules at 15, like some organizations do. This is some pretty brazen stuff that's been brought up. There was also discussion of, and the Braves attempted to pass this off as it being a joke, but Drew Waters, who was a second-round pick this year, the Braves are alleged to have offered him under-the-table benefits to sign for less money. He wanted $1.675 million. That was the slot value for his pick, and apparently, according to one of these allegations, John Coppolella offered him $1.5 million and a car to bridge the difference between $1.5 million and the slot value. So there's a lot of this stuff. And the other thing that was really interesting, Jeff Passan tweeted, John Coppolella was not well liked among his peers. Well loathed would be more accurate, and there was a lot of schadenfreude going around in Major League Baseball on the day this happened. So maybe this has been something that people have been aware of and haven't been able to prove for a while, but the fact that it's coming from internal sources and how that seems to have gotten it to Major League Baseball is fascinating.
Yeah, we should also kind of highlight just that this is all kind of alleged at this point. You know,
still part of an ongoing investigation.
Right, yeah. There might not come anything of this other than the fact that Coppolella is now no longer a part of the Braves organization. Whether he'll ever get a job in baseball again is going to be an interesting thing to follow because of what Tyler mentioned in terms of the fact that he doesn't seem to have many friends in baseball, at least in other organizations. And then you throw all these allegations on top of that led to him leaving Atlanta is interesting. One thing to also throw out about Maitan from this Passan story, there's also, worry that he had been in a 2-bedroom apartment in Florida with another player that the Braves eventually signed. He was there before the Braves signed him. And the fact that he was there with another player may hint at the fact that the Braves had gotten that apartment for him, which is obviously not proper conduct under the CBA. Again, that's something that's alleged. If it's not proven to be true, then, Maitan might stay. I think Ken Rosenthal had said, as of right now, the investigation hasn't found anything wrong with the signing of Maitan. But that would be very interesting for our purposes if he is declared a free agent. My understanding, Tyler brought up the Red Sox scandal of a couple of years ago. They had a pair of prospects who turned into free agents because of their own bundling issues in the Latin market. So if Maitan were to become a free agent, he would still fall under international signing rules. This would not be a full-fledged free agent, which would obviously be more fun for Kevin Maitan. He would have a lot more money at his disposal, but also more fun for us just to see what a player his age and of his caliber. This is a top 100 prospect. Everybody kind of agrees on that. What he would get on the open market, would love to know that. But the way it looks is he would have to fall under international signing rules. So a lot of these teams have already gone through their international budgets for the 2017-2018 signing period, but they would be docked $300,000. That's how it worked with the Red Sox prospects. So the cap hit would be whatever Maitan signs for minus $300,000. That would be fascinating what that all is going to mean for him. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I will say that, I don't want, Kevin Maitan to be lifted out of the organization. And I also don't want to find out that all the Braves broke all these rules to sign him. I would rather everything be above board and him to stay where he is and with the team he originally picked. But we'll be following this pretty closely going into the offseason. And like I said, if he is declared a free agent, well, then the offseason gets even more interesting from our perspective.
Certainly a very deep story that we'll keep an eye on, and that'll wrap up Three Strikes for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. Before we wrap up this segment, we do have one heartbreaking note that we need to get to. The 22-year-old sister of Chicago White Sox prospect Michael Duarte, Cristiana Duarte, was one of those killed in Las Vegas on Sunday. She was missing through a large part of Monday. Michael and his family were tweeting out pictures and asking people to call with information. His sister, who went by Chrissy, she had just taken a job with the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings, likewise, trying to find her. The hope was that maybe she was just in a hospital somewhere and people hadn't been able to locate her yet. She was not. She was one of those killed. Michael's girlfriend was also at that concert, Ariel Romero. She was shot in the face, suffered a fractured jaw, and is reportedly in stable condition with her injuries. There is a GoFundMe page that has been started for the Duarte family and the Romero family, which you can find. I know the White Sox, a few of their affiliate sites had been tweeting that out as well, but obviously our thoughts very much with Michael's family, as well as with the families of everyone else involved on Sunday in Las Vegas. Michael was a draft selection in this past June's draft out of UC Irvine. He went in the 23rd round, just played in a couple of games for rookie-level Great Falls in the Pioneer League, but something that you never think you're going to have to talk about or write about or think about. And then it hits home with people who are, involved in the same family in which you're involved. And another minor leaguer, Bubba Derby, a prospect in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, was also in attendance at that concert. Thankfully, he was okay and was able to run to safety. But just crushing, man. Monday, seeing that on Michael's Twitter account, just as heartbreaking as anything you could have seen this week.
Yeah. I think you touched on it pretty well there. This type of tragedy hits us all, regardless of whether we know anybody or not. But when you do know somebody involved, or it's somebody, even in our silly circle that is minor league baseball or just baseball in general, it hits home all the more. And that shouldn't be just the case because she worked for a hockey team or her brother was a baseball player or anything like that. Whenever a tragedy like this happens, we tend to focus on who perpetrated it, who was the shooter and all that kind of stuff. And we get to learn a lot about them, but please look towards the victims and especially look towards those who were there to help. Lots of stories like that this week of people who were helping others and some who gave their lives to do so. Let's learn as much about them and honor them as best we can. And honor their memories as best we can by making the world better and trying to find the stories about them and taking them with us forward. So, our thoughts, as always, are with the victims in this, and hopefully we can take what happened and make the world a better place and not just turn our thoughts would turn them into actions.
There is a GoFundMe page also set up by the Clark County Commission, which will handle the vast majority of support for victims' families, which you can find at GoFundMe. It's the Las Vegas Victims Fund. It is nearly at $9 million of its $10 million goal. That was just announced, I believe, on Tuesday, and we're recording this on Wednesday. It's almost met that goal, but please, if you are in a position, donate. Donate to Puerto Rico, donate to Mexico, do what you can to help out, do what you can to make the world a little bit better place. We got a lot of baseball family in Puerto Rico and in Mexico that are hurting right now, and in Florida and Texas as well. It has not been an easy few weeks around the world. So if you're tuned in and you feel the urge to do something to help, please do so. And you can find where to do all of that online and elsewhere. And hopefully we can all do something to make somebody else smile today, but our thoughts obviously with the families of Michael Duarte and everybody else. And that'll do it for our opening segment on this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. We will head to the Baltimore Orioles organization next, and we will catch up with a guy who put his name at the forefront of a whole lot of discussion about that system, Austin Hayes, the outfielder out of Jacksonville University, who really put himself on the map with a breakout 2017, and that was following a breakout 2016 in which he went to the O's in that year's draft. We'll catch up with Austin about his 2017 campaign, his major league debut, and what lies ahead for his offseason coming up next. Our guest this week on the Minor League Baseball podcast, the show before the show, as we head into the full-on minor league offseason, is Baltimore Orioles prospect Austin Hayes, who joins us after yet another terrific season, 2 times through in the minor leagues, since being selected in the 3rd round of the Major League Baseball first-year player draft in 2016. 2 great seasons. Austin, coming off your first full year, how is the start to the offseason treating you so far?
Oh, it's great. The drive home wasn't too good, but I'm glad to be off my feet and just sitting around relaxing, enjoying all my family and company.
Well, and being a guy who is a Florida product, this has been a tumultuous last few weeks, few months. How off the field, I mean, how is everything family-wise, your hometown, everybody that you know? What have the last few weeks been like for you? It's been kind of rough all over the place, feels like, with weather and natural disasters and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of blessed in a really hard time. No one had any serious injuries, or no one had any bad damages to their house or anything like that. So everybody came away okay. Just a little bit of flooding, but nothing nearly as bad as what it could have been.
Well, that's the best possible outcome that you could hope for. And now getting a chance to get into the offseason, like you said, you have a bit of an opportunity to relax. And this is now 2 seasons, 1 full season through in minor league ball since going in the 3rd round in 2016. But this year, I mean, if you can have a breakout first full pro season, this was it. 2 levels, Class A Advanced with Frederick, AA with Bowie, and then your major league debut. Did you ever imagine coming out of school just over a year later you could be in the big leagues for 20 games?
No, I wouldn't have said it was going to happen that fast.
So take us through the jump in levels. I mean, you go to get started at Frederick, tough level, tough league, but you dominate there, 328, 364, 592 your slash line. Then you jump up to Bowie, you get a little bit better there. To make an in-season jump, and then all of a sudden get told you're going to the major leagues. What were the emotions of that climb like over the summer?
There's a lot of happiness, just going from level to level and getting to experience the difference in the competition, even just the difference in the age group of most of the guys that I'm around. But, I mean, it was a lot of smiles, man. It just gave me a lot of confidence knowing that the Orioles believed in me enough to move me up that quick. And, I feel like I did my part, and I just gave my all every day. And once again, they trusted me enough to call me up, and I got to experience that this year too. So it was unbelievable.
Well, even going back to what Tyler was talking about in terms of Frederick and Bowie, what stood out to me about your season was just how incredibly consistent you were. You hit 328 at Frederick. You hit 330 at Bowie. You hit 16 homers at Frederick, 16 at Bowie. You had an OPS of 956 at Frederick, an OPS of 960 at Bowie. What allowed you to be so consistent this year, no matter, the competition you were facing specifically in the minors?
Yeah, I think it was my routines that I had developed from coming out of college. I had a good foundation and a base for what I wanted to do on a daily basis, get my body feeling right, get my swing feeling the same, and then actually being able to experience playing every single day this year with no injuries or anything like that. Being able to get into those feelings was a lot easier than it was in college or even in short season last year, because I went through a wrist injury that had me out for 6 weeks. So, I mean, the biggest part of it for me, I feel like, was just playing every single day. It was easier to stay in those grooves once I found what was working and what felt right. The routines just helped me a lot.
And particularly when it came to power, at what point did it feel like it was going to be a special season? I mean, you hit 3 home runs in April and then kind of launched out from there, hitting 7 the next month and 6 the month after that in the Carolina League. What allowed you to create the power that you did? Your 32 homers were tied for second most in the minor leagues this year. How do you kind of explain what happened in that department?
Yeah, I would say I started off a little bit slower at the beginning of the year. My timing was good on the fastball, but I was swinging and missing at a lot of breaking balls, and I just didn't have that click or whatever it was that was allowing me to make solid contact on off-speed pitches. But I had that 3 home run game against Potomac, and for whatever reason, there was something that happened in that game that something clicked, and it just allowed me to recognize fastballs and breaking balls, and I was putting equally as powerful swings on both.
And kind of talk about what's different about you now as a pro hitter than what you were as a college hitter. I mean, I know you had pretty good last year with Jacksonville that allowed you to be a 3rd-round pick, but being a 3rd-round pick, lots of teams, everybody got at least one look at you, if not more, coming into the draft. And then I think after the season you put up this year, any team would love to have you, any system would love to have you. What type of different player are you now as a pro than you were in college?
I mean, if you go back and look at the numbers, they were basically identical to my junior season I had as well. So I think my biggest jump was from my sophomore year to my junior year. And once again, it was just the ability to hit off-speed pitches better than I was doing before. I've always been able to hit a fastball, but when I started tapping into that in my junior year, that really allowed me to take my game to another level. And since I've gotten drafted and gotten into pro ball, I've taken a lot of pride in my defense and my base running and all those other small things that you can work on a daily basis. And since I'm getting more reps now and playing every single day, I feel like those small parts of my game have progressed even more. And it's just helping me become a better player every single day.
Austin, let's talk defensive work. I know the vast majority of publications looking at the 2016 draft for the O's said you were the best athlete, maybe the best pure hitter, the best defensive player, and so often we get sucked into just talking about offensive work. But defensively, you hold down center field for the vast majority of your time. And Frederick, you get some time in the corners, and Bowie, you get some time in the corners in the big leagues. What was the adaptation like at the professional level to being a strong defensive outfielder and being able to play kind of all around wherever you're needed in a defensive setup?
Yeah, I would say the biggest part is, most days we're going to take batting practice on the field, and you can take as many fly balls off a fungo or a machine as you want, but it's just not the same as the spin of the ball, how fast it comes off a bat. So just getting live reads in BP every single day at different positions, playing at different depths, trying to get reads off different types of hitters, power hitters, righties, lefties at each position. So just going through that process every single day was something that I took a lot of pride in, and I really wanted to get better, and I wanted to get better at all positions. So when the time came and I needed to play somewhere, I'd be prepared for it.
One of the things I've heard guys talk about getting into pro ball, especially guys who come from smaller colleges or come from the high school level, is that playing in different stadiums with different crowd backdrops can play a factor as you try to get adjusted to playing the outfield at the professional level. Because like you said, you can take as many fly balls in BP and all that, but you're still taking them against a solid color backdrop of empty seats. When fans fill in, it changes up that vision entirely. Did that play a factor at all when you first kind of get in, you play in front of some big crowds, and you're sort of having to adjust to that all across these different levels where you go?
Yeah, for sure. It's as much as your mind and your body has to adjust to things, so do your eyes. the lights are a lot higher, so it's, in one aspect, it's easier to see the fly balls because when they go up the twilight time of the night, you know, the third, fourth inning, when in most minor league stadiums, there's going to be a 15 to 20 minute span where everyone's going to struggle to see a fly ball in the outfield. You don't really have that twilight time as much anymore in any of these big league parks because the lights are so high and they're so good. But like you were saying, there's that third deck that, I mean, most guys, unless you played at a really big time school and maybe played in the College World Series or something like that where there were a ton of fans, you've never experienced it before. So it's definitely something that is different at first, but your eyes adjust quick and you kind of learn how to just pick up the ball a little better than you were when you first got out there.
And Austin, I kind of want to revisit your time in the majors. Just starting off with when you found out you were making the jump. I know you said earlier you weren't expecting at all for it to come this quickly, your major league debut. Your season wraps in the Eastern League. You hit a home run, I think was your last hit for Bowie at Richmond. Probably think you're ending your year on a high like that. And then you're going up to Baltimore the next day, or at least the transaction went through the next day on the September 5th. What was that discussion like? How did you find out you were going to be making the jump this quick?
Yeah, so, we finished that game and we were going to the playoffs. So we had practice the next day on our off day, and then we were going to play our first playoff game the following day. So I had practice at 12. I got done. I came back to my apartment. I was sitting there with my girlfriend, and we were looking up movie times. We were going to go to dinner and go see the new It movie, the clown movie that came out. So we were going to go watch that, go see a scary movie. So we're kind of deciding on that, and I think it's 3:30, 3:45 in the afternoon or something. And I get a call on my phone. It was our manager from Bowie, Gary Kendall, and he's like, "Hey man, are you sitting down?" I'm like, Yeah, what's going on? He's like, well, you should stand up, pack up your stuff. You're going to Camden Yards tonight. You need to get there by 6. Like, well, it's 3:45. Let's get rolling. It was chaos, man. It was hectic. Trying to get there, going through traffic, didn't know where to park or anything. It was crazy, but it was awesome. The feeling of when he said that and just how it hit me so deep, it was a great experience.
From Bowie to Camden Yards, 45 minutes as of right now on Google Maps, and I would think like afternoon traffic. Like, how stressful was that? A, and B, when you show up, if you don't know where you're going, do you just like drive up to a security guard and be like, "Hey, my name's Austin Hayes. I just got called up to the big leagues." Like, does anybody believe you? How does that even work?
Yeah, that's what was funny because so I started calling some of the other guys. I'm like, "Hey, can you send me the address to the players' parking lot?" I mean, I wouldn't know where to go to find it, and that's where our entrance is. And I have all my stuff, so I drove to Bowie, packed up all my equipment. Like, my sliders and my socks are dirty from practice earlier that day. They haven't gotten washed yet, so I'm carrying a bag with my dirty stuff, my bag with my equipment, and so I got the address to that. But I wasn't supposed to tell anybody until I had signed my papers making me active. And someone, I think one of the reporters or something, leaked it and it got on Twitter. So my friends, family, everyone found out. I told my mom, but like some of my closer friends, and they were all calling me, blowing up my phone, and I'm trying to look at my GPS to see where I'm going. So I'm hitting exit and decline, trying to get the screen off. My phone's about to turn off because everyone's blowing it up. It was crazy, man. It was chaos, but it was awesome.
That's a good lesson, I think, for everybody. If your friend ever gets called up, just hold off on the congratulations.
Wait. That's like a good argument for like.
Yeah.
It's a good argument for like the Tom people.
Mix in a text. Yeah, mix in a text or something every couple days, or just wait a little bit for him. He's got all kinds of stuff going on too.
That's a good argument for the people who used to make like the dashboard mounted GPS. Like, you don't have to worry about that with those. They should start using that. Just market directly to guys getting called to the big leagues.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the old Tom.
Exactly.
So you stick it to the dash.
So you get called up the 5th, and then your first game, the first at bat you take is on the 7th, and it didn't seem like you were getting that much playing time early on. You only had like 3 games played, and at that it was, pinch hit duty or coming in late in the games. How did you kind of handle that? Showing up, being told you were a major leaguer, but getting very sporadic playing time, at least very early on.
I was basically just trying to keep the same mindset as if I was playing, if I was in the lineup. Just focus on what the outfielders were doing, what each hitter was doing in their at bat. So if I did get in the game, I would know where to play if that person was up. And I was looking at the scouting reports, looking at who might come in the game, who's warming up in the pen. If I do get a possible at bat, I kind of understand what he might try to do to me or what kind of pitches he has. So I just kind of tried to have a manager's mindset, I guess you would say. Kind of just running through scenarios in my head so that I'd be prepared for anything.
And did you have any conversation with Buck Showalter about that? Just about hey, what should I be doing right now? Or him telling you, listen, this is my plan for you right now. Was there any conversation on what your role was going to be, at least early on?
No, not necessarily. I was welcomed in by everyone, all the staff and all the players, and I wasn't sure what my role was going to be. I just knew I was there and I was going to be wearing a jersey. And so, I wasn't playing the first couple of days, and they had told me in, the 8th inning, 9th inning, in a couple games, hey, if so-and-so gets on, you're going to run for him. So I'd gotten the gist, okay, well, I'll make sure I'm ready to run for somebody or ready to pinch hit late in the game if there's a matchup thing that's going on. And I got the opportunity for a start, and then I got another one a couple days later. So when I was showing up to the park every day, I had the mindset that I was going to start that day, just so that I was locked in from the get-go.
Awesome. Let's go back.
But we didn't have any.
Oh, go ahead.
We didn't necessarily have any talks like this is what you're going to be doing while you're here, or anything like that. Nothing like that.
Let's go back to a moment that you'll never forget, your family's never going to forget, and it's the thing that everybody dreams about. But you get on September 16th a game that doesn't go the way for you guys that you would have liked it to have gone. It's a loss in New York, but you're at Yankee Stadium, and you crank your first major league home run. It comes in the 9th inning against Chase and Shreve. It's a late season game, but there are 40,000 people there that night, and a dream moment is a dream moment. I mean, take us through just what that felt like. It doesn't come at home, it doesn't come in a win, but it's still that moment in your life. What do you remember about that?
I know that I'd had a few at bats by that point, and I hadn't gotten any hits up till that point. So I got the start, and I got a hit my first at bat, and I just felt like I could take a breath. Oof. Like all the little voices you had going in your head, and you haven't gotten a hit yet, this and that. That all went away, and then I just went to focusing on the game, focusing on my at bats. And then I got that last at bat. I think I was 1 for 3 up till that point. And he threw a first pitch, change up or splitter, something soft. It bounced. 1-0 count. I was like, all right, just do something up, get something good to hit. And when I hit it, I was like, oh man, I hit that pretty good, but I know it was to right center. So I was running hard out of the box, watching it, and I saw Judge, stop running right when he got to the track, and I watched it go over, and it felt the same, honestly, jogging around the bases. But after the game, when I was thinking about it, it was kind of crazy to believe it actually happened.
So do you actually remember going around the bases? I think Reese Hoskins may have said, I completely blanked on running. That just seems like such a natural thing. You're just running around the bases, but that's your first time ever getting to do that. Did you make sure to remember that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember going around the base. I think the thing that's always going to stick with me about that moment was of all of the people that could have been on base, or any of the organizations I could have been with, J.J. Hardy was he was ahead of me on base when I hit it. So when I touched home plate, the first person that was right there for me to give a high five to was J.J. Hardy, and someone that I've grown up watching for the longest time. And he's done a lot for the Orioles organization. The guy, I mean, he's been one of the best for a while now. So for me to have that acknowledgement from him for my first home run in Yankee Stadium, that's a moment I'll never forget, touching home plate and just giving knuckles to him,
And we don't get a chance to, because this is obviously a minor league podcast, we don't get the chance to talk to guys who have been in the majors yet. Usually by the time they get there, they're no longer prospects by the end. So I wanted to ask somebody that it's at least played Major League Baseball this year. One of the stories of the year was obviously powers up across the board. Part of the reason behind that might be the ball is slightly different. You're not a pitcher, you're not handling the ball as much, and you don't know how it necessarily the inner workings of it are. But how different is it to handle a ball, to hit a ball at the major league level as compared to the minors this year? What were your experiences playing with two different sets of balls in 2017?
I feel like the ball here is harder and the laces are smaller, so I can throw it. I feel like I can throw it harder and farther from the outfield. I can get more backspin on it. And then as far as hitting goes, I mean, I'm pretty sure the ball is definitely going farther in batting practice than it was when I was in the minor leagues. I mean, even the batting practice balls are harder and better. But
so is that something you guys talk about?
Harder. I would say I wouldn't. No, it's nothing we talk about. It's just not a huge difference, but you can notice a difference.
Fair enough. And we'll leave you on this one. You're now preparing for the off season. This one's obviously going to be different than last year, knowing you are preparing for an off season in which you could be competing for a big league job immediately from spring training. How does just this moment right now, this after season moment feel, and how different do you expect this off season to be in terms of how you're going to train and how you're going to kind of work towards, the day when you have to report to spring training in February?
Yeah, I mean, it feels great to be home and just enjoy my family's company. That was my first full season, so that's the longest I've ever gone without seeing a lot of my family and friends. So it's great to be home with them right now. I'm going to enjoy it for a couple of weeks and let my body recover. But as far as the training itself goes, I mean, I'm not going to change much. What I did last off season worked very well for me. My body held up well. I felt strong. I felt healthy. And I mean, I really got after it. I really worked hard. So I don't feel like I can work any harder than I did last off season. But if I can match what I did, I think I'll be perfectly prepared and I'll be ready for what spring training brings.
He is Austin Hayes, the second-ranked prospect in the Baltimore Orioles organization, number 88 overall in MLB.com. MLB Pipeline's rankings of the top 100 prospects out of the 2017 season. And Austin, congratulations on all the success this year, and thanks a ton for joining us, and best of luck over the offseason and into 2018, man. We'll be watching.
Yeah, thanks again. Thank you guys for having me.
No Benjamin Hill this week, but we do have a couple of updates on affiliations and ballparks and things, and Sam, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so the one that's really interesting, just to update everybody on that one, the Greenville Astros, the Astros who had announced they were not going to be at Greenville next year. So that slot is actually now going to be filled by the Reds, which is interesting for a number of different reasons. Obviously, that's great that a team will be moving in there. You heard Ben say that it's a good facility by Appalachian League standards, whichever way you want to go on that one. But the Reds, they have an AZL affiliate. They have a rookie level affiliate already in Billings in the Pioneer League. So now they have another rookie level affiliate in Greenville, and they don't have a Class A short season affiliate. Which, is there really that much of a difference between rookie level and Class A short season? There might be, there might not be, whatever. But that's interesting. We thought, it might go to a team that doesn't have a rookie level affiliate, a team that, something like the Red Sox, who, you go from the Gulf Coast League straight to Class A short season. Lowell, in essence, it ends up going to Cincinnati. So that's good. That's nice that we can kind of close that loop early on in the offseason, what's barely the offseason for us. Also, a small bit of news in that the Carolina Mudcats have officially been purchased by the Milwaukee Brewers, their parent affiliate. That's interesting in terms of now the parent club is running operations there. Ben can probably touch on more on that, and we can get on that with him, when he's back on the show next week, exactly what that means from the top down. But that probably means that the Brewers will be with the Carolina Mudcats for the long term. This is not necessarily a short-term player development contract. They probably like what's going on there in the Carolina League. They used to be, with Brevard County, who no longer exists. Now they moved up to Carolina with the Mudcats. Now they purchased the team. It must be nice from a player development standpoint to know that you are running operations there. Everything is under your control. You don't have to worry about owners running, silly events or anything like that, or asking too much of the players, or not putting together good facilities. Everything's under your control. So that'll be good for Brewers prospects. Probably it'll be good for the system to have some stability in terms of their affiliate. So those are two newsy business items to kind of touch on this week. And obviously lots more will come this offseason in terms of rebrands and all that kind of stuff. But this is a good first taste here in our first couple weeks of the offseason.
So that will do it for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. You can find Austin Hayes on Twitter. He is at the Austin Hayes with 3 S's at the end of Hayes. Not how it's actually spelled, in case you're wondering. But you can find Austin there. And you can find Sam Dykstra on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MiLB. I am at Tyler Mon. And that will wrap this one up. We'll talk to you guys next week. Enjoy the start to the Major League Baseball postseason. See you next week.